Everyone, it's Daniel Elwood and Robert Johnson, the Last Nighters, and the Last Nighters are part of the Launchpad Media, where we're always launching new ideas in your direction. Check it out at thelaunchpadmedia.com. Tonight, we're going to be talking about The Mule, and it's kind of appropriate that this is episode 90 of the show because the star, director, producer, etc., is nearly 90. It's Clint Eastwood, and the movie, if I didn't already mention, is called The Mule. You can find the show notes more at lastnighters.com/90. That's 90. And we have a special guest. He's been with us once before, and he also says that he likes superhero movies, and so the next time he's on, he wants to be on for a superhero movie, and here we are not doing a superhero movie. So if anything we can do to disappoint our guest, Rocky Ferrenburg, we will go out of our way to do. So Rocky, welcome to the show. You were on with us for Smallfoot right before Christmas last year, so we'll have a link to that on the show notes page at lastnighters.com/90. We'll also have a link to your website, and I know you do a bunch of other stuff, voiceovers and a podcast, and you're in bands and you write and all of these things. So why don't you take a moment, introduce yourself to the audience, and where can people find what you do? And we'll, of course, have that on the show notes page as well.
Yeah, I'm Rocky Ferrenburg. I do a number of things. I play in a couple different rock bands and help put on different concerts and fundraisers and stuff in Southern Idaho down here. And I do a little bit of voiceover work and collect comic books. And I'm actually in the process of writing a book. It's a memoir about my 12-year drug and alcohol addiction and multiple prison stints. And getting ready. I'm actually just geared up and started working on the second draft of that. And everything that I'm doing can usually be found through my website, rockyferrenburg.com. But typically, it's easier just to either go to the Practical Libertarian on Facebook or From the Mind of an Addict on Facebook.
All right, thank you. We'll put links on all of those things. And one of the reasons that I reached out to you for this particular episode was because of your experiences with drugs, and this is kind of a movie. This is the third movie in a row where we're sort of talking about the drug war from very different perspectives. We started with Back to the Future, and then we did Straight Outta Compton, and now we're doing The Mule tonight. And so I thought that you could bring some perspective to this. Now, I'm going to just throw this out there. This is not a good movie.
I was really hoping we were on the same page about that.
So spoiler alert, everyone. But
100%.
But I think it has, in its ham-fisted way, it has interesting things to spark conversation, and so that's kind of what I'm going for tonight with us. So
let's caveat. It's not necessarily that it was 100% a bad movie because the cinematography was all right and everything, but it was very, very unrealistic. Like 100% was completely. Yeah, it was just every time something happened, I was just blown away by how ridiculous it was.
Well, they say based on a true story. It's based on an article. So, and we'll get into that a little bit. But before I get into the Google description, Robert, any comments so far? Welcome to Rocky, etc. Whatever you want to say.
Yeah, hey Rocky. I noticed you got some sexy comic books behind you. I noticed some Spider-Man. I see a Spider-Man #1.
Oh yeah,
Todd McFarlane, and I see some other Spider-Mans. Are you interested in maybe doing a Spider-Man movie in the future?
Yeah, I would love to do anything Marvel so I can come on and defend it against you Marvel bashers.
Sweet.
I just picked you DC fans. I just picked this up. This is 1.8 Batman #121, first appearance of Mr. Freeze back when he was Mr. Zero. So just picked that up the other day along with a giant-sized X-Men #1.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah,
and it's not that we're like super DC fans. It's just we've been doing more of the Batman and then the Batman/Superman movies lately. We've only really done one Marvel, and that was Guardians. And the first one was pretty good, and the second one was just terrible. I didn't even finish it.
I thought the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are what they are. There was a lot of inconsistencies within the characters and stuff like Drax and whatnot, but they are what they are. They're supposed to be fun-loving family movies, a little bit more. All Marvel is pretty lighthearted, but they're definitely on the more lighthearted side of the Marvel movies.
Right. Well, we will
like Ant-Man.
We'll keep you in mind for the next one that we do that will be a Marvel movie. So let's get into the Google description, and that's usually how we start this off. So The Mule, 2018 drama/mystery, 1 hour 55 minutes. Got a 7 out of 10 on the IMDb, 70% Rotten Tomatoes, 3.7 out of 5 on DVD/Netflix. Not sure what that really means. And 88% of the Google users like it.
What?
I know, right? Okay,
Did
so
they just like the nap that it put them in, and then the coma? They were just like, "Oh, that's the best coma."
Brooke,
I'm shocked that it was a drama/mystery since it has neither drama nor mystery. What the hell?
It should have more classified as a crime. Yeah.
Crime against the viewers.
well, I think the mystery is how did 88% of the Google users like it? All right, broke, alone, and facing foreclosure on his business, 90-year-old horticulturist Earl Stone takes a job as a drug courier for a Mexican cartel. His immediate success leads to easy money and a larger shipment that soon draws the attention of hard-charging DEA agent Colin Bates. When Earl's past mistakes start to weigh heavily on his conscience, he must decide whether to right those wrongs before law enforcement and cartel thugs catch up to him. Came out December 14, 2018. The director is Clint Eastwood, starring Clint Eastwood and all of that. It's box office of $172.5 million. So I think it ended up making money. This is, I believe, Clint Eastwood's last movie. It's the last one he said he's going to do. And my thoughts are it's probably a good thing that he's going to stop. But Robert, let's get your take on the Google description, then we'll go to Rocky.
Yeah, that description sounded way better than the movie I saw. Like, it only described the interesting part at the very end, like about 3/4 of the way through the movie, because the first half is just Clint Eastwood kind of doddering about and then going on drives, and that's the entire part. The main character, he was kind of a cute, fun, kind of a eclectic old man, like, old men kind of are. They're just like, they have the filter goes and they just kind of like let their personality out. But everybody else in this movie, it was like everything was on the first take. The performances, all the dialogue was delivered so woodenly. Like Lawrence Fishburne is in it, and he says like a couple like lines over and over again, and it's just done in the most boring and generic delivery possible. All the dialogue is super on the nose. Like the characters are describing exactly what's happening and exactly what they feel and what they want to happen. Nothing is done in any kind of sense of style. It was like a first draft script, either a first time director or Clint Eastwood, who's just like sitting back there in his last hurrah, and he's like, I flipped my line there, Clint. Do we want to do it again? He's like, nah, it's fine. The whole movie was the most flat movie I've seen. The most passionless, boring crap fest. I've seen like low budget, just like a couple guys, hey, you want to make a movie for like $500? Have more passion, have more interesting, have better ideas than in this. I'm sorry. It was just, I'm getting verklempt. It's terrible.
All right. Well, just a little bit of feedback, and we'll go to Rocky. I think we mentioned this when we reviewed The Changeling a couple of years ago, that Clint Eastwood's style seems to be just so laid back as a director to almost do nothing other than sit there and say, all right, do your lines, done, print it, we're good, and move on.
But it was like these actors hadn't even rehearsed their scenes. Like nobody has any chemistry. Like it seemed as if characters that were supposed to know each other were interacting for the very first time together. Like the mother and the daughter, like the Lawrence Fishburne and those people, and like who's it, Bradley Cooper, and then the other guy, who's that? The other guy who's also in the Ant-Man movies. He's
Michael
like,
Pena.
Yeah, that guy who's really good in the Ant-Man movies. But in here, he's just like this block of wood. Same with Bradley Cooper. Same with Lawrence Fishburne. Everybody's a block of wood except for Clint Eastwood. It's like, I don't know. It's atrocious.
All right. Thank you for that. All right, Rocky, your take on the Google description and anything that Robert said so far.
Yeah, it did sound like it was a much better movie rather than actually watching it. But I think really the only thing I have to add on top of what Robert said was I think the credits for these movies that Clint Eastwood do should just say Clint Eastwood in big letters, because it seems like he just is into this mode where he wants to do everything. And it's kind of like the guy who doesn't, the guy who owns a business and doesn't want to outsource anything. He wants to do it all himself. And he winds up coming up with this substandard business and that could have been really good, but he just wants to do everything. I don't know if it's a control freak thing, but yeah, I think most of the movies he's been doing are subpar. And then you get these people that like it, and they like it solely because Clint Eastwood's name is attached to it. It's can't remember. I think it's a Jim Gaffigan stand up when he says something along the lines of like, "We already got their money. What are they going to do?" And that's that kind of how Clint Eastwood approaches his movies. It doesn't really matter I already know we're going to get their money. So what does it matter?
Yeah, I got to agree with all that. That it very much seemed like an old man who was beyond his prime, who's like at the declining years of his talents and his energy and whatever, but he's controlling everything, but he's out of ideas and he's just like, yeah, whatever's fine. And, it's just the whole movie had zero passion. Like nobody even wanted to be there. Nobody wanted to be there. The actors on screen, I mean, maybe Clint was kind of having a little bit of fun, but then there were these weird asides. Like this is kind of established his character. But they went nowhere. Like, when he met those like lesbian biker gang and like he had that lunch, that sandwich pulled pork place. It was just like, and then there were those scenes where there's like all the women gyrating at the party, just like really focused in on their asses a whole bunch. It's just really kind of like, all right, Clint's like this pervy old man. And then he also has these weird things in his brain where he's like, well, what if he meets like this lesbian biker gang for some reason? It went nowhere.
Well, the lesbian biker gang and stopping on the side of the road to help the black people that changed the tire. Those two scenes are really just made up in order to portray him as this like old man who, like it says, like out of non-PC things. And I think that's to kind of cater to that right-wing crowd that seems to have this massive hard-on for Clint Eastwood, because they want to see Clint Eastwood not be PC, and so he calls the dykes, and he calls the black people the nigger and stuff, or negro or whatever. And it's just this whole thing, like where this right-wing side likes to see somebody like Clint Eastwood not be PC.
Do you think that was Clint responding to people, or do you think that was him himself going, I'm going to make a comment on this PC culture and like really throw it in their faces?
I think that's kind of a difficult one to pin down, because Clint does kind of come out. He does kind of speak out about that kind of stuff. I've seen some of his little political comments, but it could very well be pandering as well.
Yeah, I kind of saw it as pandering, but then like oh, okay, we got to have some lesbians in here. All right, we got to have some black people in here. All right, we got to have some veterans in here. We got to check all these boxes. We got to have the guy get pulled over and say, this is the most dangerous 5 minutes of my life, a traffic stop, I could be shot, whatever. And that's actually a very interesting conversation point to have, but it stood out like a sore thumb in the movie, which was just kind of bizarre. But also in interviews that Clint's had in the past, he's very conservative. He's identified as libertarian, but he spoke at like the Republican National Conference, or what do you call it? What do you call that? The convention.
RNC?
The convention.
The National Convention.
Yeah. He was talking to like the empty chair that was like representing Obama. I think this was in 2012. And so it's a weird thing, because he does not like PC culture, at least in those interviews in the past. And he says some pretty no nonsense stuff, which I can really appreciate. But it's hard to tell what it is in this movie. Like, they do certainly seem out of place, and they do give him some reason to say something that it's like the old common thing, like, oh, everyone has like a crazy uncle who says something that is no longer safe to say anymore. And it seems like that's accelerated in this, what's it called? Cancel culture, where anyone takes anything that was said even 10, 15 years ago, back when saying that thing wasn't such a bad thing, or it was meant in a comedic way and it was accepted as such, like anything that Dave Chappelle did or whatever, or Eddie Murphy or George Carlin or any of those guys. And now they take those things and they use it to ruin people.
Yeah,
right. They attribute the worst possible intentions. Whereas if it's said by somebody on the left, they'll give it the most charitable interpretation, generally speaking.
Right. We're getting that right now. The big thing is the Trudeau stuff, where he's apparently done dressed up as an Arabian Night and done blackface, and they're even calling it brownface or something like that to like soften it a little bit. And the thing that gets me with that, and we'll get back to this movie, I swear we will, but
we don't have to. It's crap.
But Trudeau's...
Yeah, keep it rolling. Wherever it goes, it's good.
I don't agree with cancel culture at all, though it is a somewhat market force. Like, people can have an opinion about something and be outraged and no longer like go to that venue or purchase from that person, whatever. But he's a politician, so it doesn't really work that great. But he's also been a person who's advocated this kind of a thing. Like, when he had a certain number of a quota of people in his cabinet, his reasoning for it was, it's 2016 or whatever, when he had it. Like, that was his reason for having, this many gay people, this many women, this many, non-white people, not because they were the best people for the job. He was just checking off boxes, And so I guess in a roundabout way, I'm trying to say he's getting a taste of his own medicine. It's something that he supported, this kind of cancel culture stuff, and now he's getting a taste of it, and that is like a little bit of Schadenfreude. But I also don't think anyone should be subjected to this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be this kind of tit for tat. Let's dig up everybody's past and pretend to get outraged over something that was clearly either intended as a joke or meant in good humor or whatever, and it doesn't aimed at anybody to cause anybody's pain or whatever. What really upsets me is when people bow down and apologize to the social justice mob, and all that does is just like blood in the water to sharks. That just reinforces that, yes, they're doing a good thing by trying to ruin these people. They really did do something bad and wrong. And you're not going to appease them anyway by apologizing to them.
Right.
And you're admitting that you actually caused pain and suffering to people. What are you talking about? Who goes around? And it's always like, I hate to get racial on it, but it always seems to be like white women that are like, or white guys that are offended for minorities. It's never like, I mean, sometimes it's minorities too, but it's always like somebody getting offended for somebody else. It's like, really? And
it's like a white knight
offended. You're an adult. Turn it off. Who cares? Anyway.
Yeah. And then we see the guy who got kicked off of SNL before he was even doing anything.
Yeah,
like he just got hired, and then they immediately fired him for something that they knew about.
It was somebody from the story that I heard, which could be wrong, was that it wasn't necessarily that theoretically they should have known about it, because I would imagine that their vetting process would be pretty intense. But some journalist or something like that, I believe, dug through all this stuff in like an hour or a couple hours or whatnot. And then, of course, try to frame all this stuff up. But especially whenever you're talking about comedians and whatnot, if you take any of these jokes that are very, very, very raw jokes, and you just read them like as if you were reading a transcript in a courtroom, you miss out on so much stuff. I think Dave Smith was talking about that a short while ago, about how you can just lose so much of what's being said by just reading it in a totally different context.
Yeah, was that in the Bill Burr special?
That was also in the Bill Burr special, and yeah, Smith was talking about the Bill Burr special. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You can take something set out of context and give it the worst possible interpretation, take it in the harshest way, and then attribute that person to be, horrific and evil and all this crap.
Well, you can even do it with your dog. I mean, you can say, if you look at your dog and you're like, good dog, or if you're like, bad dog, and that whole demeanor, it doesn't matter what you're saying, it matters how it's being said. And that's part of the way that you can craft a joke, is your delivery and the context of what's been said and how you built up to it. But if you just read that one piece, it sounds completely different than what was actually said. I've
heard women say that. It's not what you said, it's how you said it.
Yep.
No, I'm not pointing out my wife. I don't think she does that kind of thing, but I've had that experience before. But anyway, why don't we get into this movie just a little bit? So we kind of start off with Earl. He's neglecting his family. He's choosing work and whatever level of fame he achieves by that over any family events. He misses his daughter's christening, his daughter's wedding, all these things. And then the internet apparently puts him out of business. And he is now left with the family not liking him and hard times in business as a result of not being able to innovate and keep pace with technology. And I don't know. I just thought that might be a jumping off point for some conversation here.
Well,
Okay.
I was a little bit confused because he walked by and he acknowledged the internet and he was like, who needs it, because you got the new company for the internet. But then when he walked over and sat down for the horticulture convention or whatever it was, people flocked over to his table and bought his flowers, and he won the award or whatnot. And then he came back and he said that he didn't make as much money. But still, he won the award and people flocked to his table. So it didn't really portray his business being bad. And it actually kind of made him look like he was like shorting the Mexicans. Like he did all this good business over there and then came back and told the Mexicans, oh yeah, I didn't get paid very much. So that's kind of what I was thinking. And then when of course you see the foreclosure on this house, it's like, okay, so I guess maybe business isn't as good, or maybe he's poor with his money. I mean, it kind of left the door open to a lot of different types of assumptions.
Yeah, that's why another reason why this thing is terrible.
All right.
It was atrocious. Rocky's absolutely right. He's playing it up like the internet's going to kill his business, but then he just does gangbuster business. His table is flooded with people. He's getting awards. He's Mr. Awesome Daylily guy. And then the very next scene, he's like, "Oh, out of business." Like what?
All right, well,
What kind of storytelling is that movie?
Hold on, guys. Hold on. I think you're missing a very important. I could be wrong on the number. It's either 12 or 17, but it says 12 years later or 17 years later. And then his business has dried up as a result of the internet.
No.
Yes.
He looks exactly the same.
Well, he's still
like
90. It's still the same Clint Eastwood guy. But
you're telling me
I must have missed that.
So in the beginning, the first couple scenes, he's playing a 14-year younger guy.
Yeah, he's playing a 70-something-year-old guy. And then, and that's where it's like this prelude of the internet. Oh, it's this thing. Just disregard it. And he's still doing well because he's famous for a certain variety. I read a little bit about the original guy.
So you had to. No, see the thing. This is the problem is that you had to go back and you had to read a little bit more in order to add more context to the movie in order to be able to understand it. That's not what movies should be doing. Movies should be showing what's happening much better than this. They shouldn't say, "Oh, hey, here's the movie, and by the way, here's the storybook to accompany the movie as well."
Yeah, 100% agree with Rocky. Show, don't tell.
All right. Well, I'm just going to say you guys both apparently missed the 12 years later.
I did because I was asleep. I was in a medically induced coma. That's why I missed the text that flashed across the screen probably.
All right. Well, that text explains the sudden, because it's not so sudden. But anyway.
Can we also agree that by doing time jumps like that, that's very lazy writing?
Yep. Yeah, why? Why can't we just have something taking place in the current year? You could have told the same story.
Well, because what you're showing is you're showing this guy at his peak of his powers, having ignored his family, achieved the level of fame that he had achieved, so that people were flocking to his table, and then he disregards a new threat, and he's not willing to adapt. And then 12 or 17 years later, and I wish I knew which one, you see the effects of that. His family has left him. He's going out of business. He's in foreclosure. He has lost business due to not having a web presence and all of these things. So you see the impact. And I don't think that's lazy. I think that's just, hey, here's what's starting point. Here's the trajectory he was going on, and here's the result. And then now the story begins. Now he's desperate, and now he's searching for ways to make money and reconcile with his family for making those poor decisions in the past.
Okay, not to rewrite the dumb script, but I would cut that first part out and just have one scene where Clint Eastwood is in his little trophy room and he's looking over all his blue ribbons and trophies and whatnot. And then he's got the foreclosure notice in his hand and a little tear crawls down his cheek and whatever. That does the same thing without confusing the audience. Anyway, Rocky, sorry, go ahead.
No, actually, I was going to kind of cut a different way. I was going to ask if anybody else thought that Clint Eastwood's character was a total piece of shit in this whole movie. He totally disregarded his family, treated him like shit the whole time, and then he tries to say that he's going to do something good. And I know this is kind of jumping ahead, so he starts, kneeling for these people, and then all of a sudden he's not really. I mean, he does good things with some of the money, but he's not around his family anymore. Doesn't really give a shit about him, and basically takes off running again. And then finally, whenever it's convenient, when once again, spoiler alert or whatever, but whenever his ex-wife dies, all of a sudden he comes running back. But the whole time he's this guy who, when he has an opportunity to be like the life of the party or whatever, he just abandons his family and just runs off. There's no character arc. He doesn't. I mean, he comes back in the end and sits with his ex-wife while she dies. But I mean, that story arc is so weak. But even throughout, I mean, he's just like I don't know. I just thought he was a piece of garbage the whole time. I was like, this dude just will take off at the drop of a hat to go party it up,
Yeah, I completely agree. The only thing that I thought, the reason that he had some kind of personality,
he's not redeeming.
Kind of liked about him. But he wasn't all right. I mean, he's a piece of shit to his family, which is unforgivable. But the way he dealt with situations, the way he was like when he dealt with the cop, when he diffused the tension and diffused the escalation and that sort of thing. Those little interesting ways in which he dealt with those kind of things were kind of, I don't know if it didn't redeem the character, but it gave him some personality to a shitty character, like you're saying, because you're right. His arc is crap. It seemed kind of ham-fisted, and well, anyway, that's what you expect from this shit show.
All right. Well, I'm going to say he actually had an arc, and he works his way back into trying to earn the good graces of his family, and he's trying to earn money to do good deeds to try to make up for his transgressions in the past, and I think that it is a redemption.
Is that what he was doing?
Hold on. You know how like if you're hooking up with a chick and she's got that nice deep arc when you're going at it from back, and she really arcs her back down, but then there's the other girl who kind of arcs her back all awkwardly. There's a good arc, and then there's a bad arc. And Clint Eastwood definitely was the arced up back. It was definitely the poor arc of the two.
Wow! All right, this is a family show. Thank you for that visual.
Is it a family show?
No, it is not.
Okay, I was about to say I missed that. I know the last show we did was a family show, but this one was
No, we marked this explicit, and if you want to support what we do here, check it out at lastnighters.com/Patreon, and you'll get to watch live stream of us making these terrible remarks. So, all right, well. So, Robert, you mentioned how he diffuses the situation with the police, and he actually does that with that first encounter with the police, and that's actually used in the trailer, and it's very menacing. A lot of the moments in the trailer like lead you into thinking that something's going to happen in this movie, and then when you see those trailer snippets actually in the context of the film, you're like, oh, that wasn't anything what I thought. Like when they show the Bradley Cooper character coming out after him outside the restaurant. And in the trailer, you're like, oh, he's onto him. He's going to catch him. But in the movie, it's like, oh, here's your thermos.
That's actually great. I love it when trailers do that. I love it whenever you see the trailer and you think one thing, and then you go into a movie and it's something different. That was really good.
Well, whoever made the trailer had to. I mean, they got nothing to work with in this movie. I mean, what are you going to do? You have to cut it up in some kind of deceptive way, because if you were to accurately describe what happens in this movie, no one would come see this thing.
Right. And then with the dog one and the pecans, I mean, that's also in the trailer, and it's like leads you to believe that he's about to get caught. And they don't show how that gets resolved. And he uses his wily old man skills with
That's
his
what I liked about it.
old man props to get out of that, with the Bengay and wiping it on his hands and then rubbing it in the dog's face so the dog can't smell the Coke, which is great.
So that was a very interesting. I made some notes because I actually work with a guy who quit being a cop because of all the corruption and whatever. I'm trying to actually get him to come on a couple different shows and talk about his experience. But he used to train police dogs, and so I kind of came to him and I was talking to him. He had seen the movie. I was asking him kind of about, well, if first of all, if the dog had to take a leak, are they actually going to let him out? And he said, well, they wouldn't let him out unless he was on a leash. You're not supposed to have the dog not on a leash. And I was like, well, what about running up to him? Would he just take off and run up to him? And he, well, that's kind of why you have the leash on, because not only is there a chance that he could run up to him, and it's kind of like a service dog, you're not supposed to really touch him. But beyond that, he actually said that the dogs could have a potential to attack somebody, which I found that to be very revealing about the way that these police officers train these dogs. But furthermore, I asked him about the wiping the Bengay on the dog's nose, and how the dog might possibly not smell the cocaine, that close to the car. So he said that, it's possible, because the scent's in the air, the dog might not catch the scent. But he told me, if you rub Bengay in the dog's nose, he's like, you'll fuck the dog up really bad. So, which I don't recall if the dog was whimpering the whole time the officer was taking him back. If he was whimpering, I don't know why the officer didn't care about his dog. But if he wasn't whimpering, then I don't know. I don't know. I just didn't find that to be very realistic based on talking to this guy about, the training of dogs and the utilizing them.
Yeah, that makes some sense. I think that just in general with police dogs, I think that they use them often as an excuse to search whatever they want to search, so they can get the dog to respond to certain cues, to give them not quite probable causes, though they might consider it that, but it's like something akin to that. So they can basically use the dog as an excuse to get further in to whatever they're looking at.
Well, and what's interesting is, because I was kind of talking to him about that, I was asking him about, getting dogs riled up before you have them walk around the car. And one of the things he was talking about was these dogs, they'll hit because there's basically, they can smell types of residue or even smoke on clothing or anything like that. So they may hit on somebody. So let's just say they were looking for pot. They may hit on somebody because they smell like pot, or they have marijuana residue, from smoking and stuff on their clothes. So the dog's not necessarily not giving a false indicator per se, but they do utilize that to be able to violate people's Fourth Amendment rights and be able to illegally search cars and stuff. So they do utilize that to their benefit. But what he was saying was that the dog will never false indicate, but the dog might not smell something even though it's in the car. So for what it's worth.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to go on a little rant here. I view the drug war as an excuse to totally violate the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, and that's the whole point of it. It gives any excuse to do anything as far as violating people's privacy and their security in their homes and their possessions and their papers and all of those things. Similarly, the war on terror gave the excuse for whatever last vestiges remained of that, and it's like perfectly excused and accepted now because technically we're all safer now. But it's a really terrible thing, and it's something hard to see for so many people to just lay down and accept it. Basically licking the boots. And the drug war is racist in its origin and its persecution, and I think it's one of the biggest reasons why our rights are violated and why people are in prison. The largest prison population in the world, based on percentage of population, if I recall. So, it's definitely something that needs to be shut down. And just take it away, Rocky. Do you have any opinion on that?
Well, it's definitely the war on drugs is definitely a revenue generator, especially like here in Idaho. One of the big things with the rider program is that they talk about trying to rehabilitate people, and their rehabilitation tactics even spread from people that are abusing drugs or whatnot to even sex offenders, talking about being able to rehabilitate sex offenders and even really rehabilitate violent criminals and all. They've taken this rehabilitation thing and making it bigger than it needs to be. But as far as drug use, so like they get a grant from the federal government to put people through their rider program or their drug and alcohol program. So the grant money that comes in is not only going to create jobs, government jobs, through paying these counselors and these CEOs and all these other people that are in the prison complex, but it's also if they say they get $80,000 to put somebody through a treatment program, and they can put them through for $60,000, which of course all that revenue is coming back to the state, or a third-party drug testing agency, which is a level of cronyism between a private corporation and the state. They also get a pocket $20,000 if they can put them through for 60 whenever they received 80. And of course the standard other stuff that people talk about with civil asset forfeiture and even the confiscating of drugs, and drugs go missing, cops selling drugs behind people's back, even to the bigger scales of like the Iran-Contra scandal of running the guns into Central America and bringing drugs back in. I mean, yeah, it's all a racket. I mean, the government's seen a place to make money, and they've taken advantage of doing so.
Right, and all the incentives are perverse, and it basically incentivizes them to continue to do more and more of these things because they get a cut of the what's confiscated, and they get drug busts and like this good press and all that stuff. And we saw that in the movie with Lawrence Fishburne and the Bradley Cooper character. Like, you got to make a name for yourself. You got to make buzz if you want to get out of this jurisdiction, because it's like not one of the hot ones or the big game ones, then you got to show some results and then you can move on up. And they use that whole apparatus as an excuse to basically lay into that. What's the guy's name? Luis, I want to say, where they basically threaten him to work with them. And if he refuses, they'll just tell the drug people that he is working with them. Basically lie to him.
It was a complete lie. Yeah, it was a complete lie. It wasn't even like they were using information they had in order to get him to do something, or they're cutting him slack. They basically just went in there and said, hey, we're going to just make up this story so that these drug cartels come and kill you unless you work with us. Like, it was so just disgusting.
Right. Yeah. And then they said they had a warrant, and they found $425,000 in cash, drugs, and unlicensed firearms. Well,
bet you didn't get any of that back.
Yeah, but none of those sound like crimes.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that.
Robert, you want to jump in on any of this so far?
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about drugs. I mean, first of all, I'd like to congratulate drugs for winning the war on drugs. Drugs will win because people like them, and the market isn't servicing that desire that people have for The market services the desire for these other drugs, which is good at. I mean, the market produces just tons and tons of drugs, but the government comes along and says, well, these drugs are good, and we put them in this category, and then these drugs are bad, and we'll put those in this other category. If you have these drugs, you're okay and you're fine. You're upstanding citizen. You're fine. No problems. But if you're these category, you do these, you're a bad person and you need to be rehabilitated. You need to be locked in a cage. You need to be shot and killed. You need to have, your home invaded at 4 a.m. But you can't legislate human behavior because the drugs will always win. People like them. You can't make a thing that people enjoy illegal. People are still going to do that.
Right.
It's not going to change people's behavior by just saying, well, these are naughty, because people understandably know that's bullshit. They're like, no, I've done marijuana. I didn't turn into a raving lunatic. It's fine. I actually enjoyed it. You're stupid.
Yeah. And if anything, the war on drugs increases the danger of supplying it and getting it. There's fewer above board legal means of dispute resolution. So you get all this gang activity. You get lower quality, higher concentrations, higher prices, all of these other terrible bad effects, where if it was basically everything was legal, then you would have competitive market forces driving up the quality, driving down the price. And it doesn't mean that everyone would be doing heroin tomorrow. It just means that those that did heroin would be able to have it in a safer dose and a safer environment. And those who didn't wouldn't be subjected to all the downstream effects of waging the drug war.
So I just pulled something up on my phone, and it's the 10 scariest prescription drug side effects. And I found it just interesting because there's so much scaremongering around illegal drugs or heroin or these things, but yet there, some of the side effects of legal drugs or drugs approved by the FDA are crazy, like hallucinations, memory loss, unwanted, painful, persistent erections, blood clots, compulsive behaviors, Steven Johnson syndrome, which sounds like that should be the erection one, birth defect, cancer, suicide, death. It's not just because a state says that or a state organization says that a drug is okay to take, it doesn't mean that it is. What was that one article a lot of people have been talking about? I think it was on Tom Woods, the magazine that predicted a number of FDA drugs that were not safe and were going to be recalled. You guys know what I'm talking about? And they got like every one of them right.
No, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, it was on Tom Woods episode. It's some magazine or organization, and they predicted like every single, like over the course of like 10 years or something like that, 30 different medications. They were reviewing them after the FDA approved them, and they called like every single one that was going to be recalled, and the FDA wound up recalling it. I don't know what it is. If I can find it whenever we get off here, you guys can throw it in the show notes. I'll see if I can find it.
Well,
the FDA is absolutely terrible.
Yeah,
they're extremely limited in what they know, and they get things wrong all the time. Either by failing to act and failing to legalize something that would be beneficial, and also making something perfectly fine that is really dangerous. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so just a few more things to add to our show notes page. Mark Thornton has a whole bunch of lectures on the drug war and the effects and what it does to the purity and the concentration and the prices and all those things. So I'll post some of that on our show notes page at lastnighters.com/90. Also on there will be a link to the Robert Higgs book, Against Leviathan. And in that book, he mentions and has a table of the deaths and serious patient outcomes from FDA-approved drugs. And just a little flavor of it, the number of deaths in the decade of 2000 to 2010, 452,000 plus people died as a result of FDA-approved drugs, and 2.8 million had serious health-related outcomes as a result. So,
and that's just the seen, right? That's not the unseen of the drugs that would have saved lives that were not approved.
Right. Or mitigated human suffering.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a bit of some ranting there from the three of us on the drug war.
Well, one of the other parts of the drug war too was when they pulled that guy over in the black pickup towards the end of the show, and they pulled him out of there, and they basically illegally searched his vehicle, and because they thought it was Clint Eastwood's black pickup. They didn't have a warrant for that guy. They weren't able to identify him as the actual suspect. They pulled him out. The same guy that was saying, "Don't kill me, don't kill me. This is the most dangerous 5 minutes of my life." That's one of the other problems with the drug war is that these officers can basically have carte blanche to run around and harass whoever they feel under the guise or under the mask of trying to defend freedom through the drug war, whatever the hell their excuse is this week.
Right. And every interaction, every excuse that a cop has just leads to more possibilities for tragedies to occur.
The other thing I think we skipped over too was the foreclosure of his house. And I don't mean to just breeze over what you just said, but I was thinking about this too. The foreclosure of his house. I'm just going to assume it. He didn't say anything about like if he was still paying like a mortgage or whatever, but I would imagine that it was for not paying some kind of property tax. I mean, I guess if he was still paying a mortgage at that age, I don't know. That seems a little far fetched, maybe. But I thought about when I saw that foreclosure, I was like, well, if it's for not paying property tax, then once again, that's completely absurd too. If you've paid off your property, then you should damn well be able to own your property. If you decide you don't want to pay tax on it, you shouldn't have, the government should have no right to come in and confiscate it. And what's even crazier about confiscating somebody's house is that technically the government is saying that they have a right to come in and confiscate the land, but yet I don't know how you would do it, but I mean, if you can't even take your house off there, if you possibly could, the government has to keep the house on there. So, I mean, it's not even necessarily that they have a right to the land. They have a right to the land and the house, anything you build on that piece of property. So it's not necessarily that they have a right to come in and take just the land, but more than just that. It's insane.
Right. Yeah. I get taxed on the land and also the improvements, which is the structures and all of that stuff on top of it. And I just paid my house off actually. And I will never own the house in the sense of I can do what I wish with it without any risk of losing it for not paying basically a land rent to the county, which is it's kind of when you think about it, it's like, well, this is crazy. Like why if I paid for the house, why would it not be mine? But that's the world we live in today. And 99 out of 100 people are going to totally agree with that position of, well, you got to pay your taxes because you want schools and fires and firemen and roads and shit like that.
My electrician, who I was having to put a wire from my garbage disposal to my circuit breaker box, said he's got to charge me like $80 for a permit to do that. I need permission from some asshole in Olympia to wire my garbage disposal.
Yeah, you know what? You might actually have somebody come out and inspect it. When I had the outlet for my office set up, because it's a shipping container box, and I had to get a new service outlet on our main breaker, like coming to the house, and they had to come out and inspect it. I had to come to the property and sign off on it, and it really felt like a violation. But anyway,
if we wanted to stay on the drug war thing or circling back to it, the major kingpin, I think it was saying, was down in Mexico, but it was saying that he was getting the drugs from this tire shop, wherever it was at. I can't remember where they're at. Anyways, so he's getting they weren't in Mexico basically. So he's getting these drugs from this tire shop. Okay, and the cartel guy is in Mexico. And so we're led to believe that the drugs are coming from Mexico. Well, maybe they're made in USA. Who knows? But because it doesn't really say that. But if they're coming from Mexico, kind of like what it alludes to, who's muling them from Mexico to this damn tire shop? And why the hell do they have to stop at the tire shop to give it to this old man who theoretically would be incredibly untrustworthy to haul these types of drugs to wherever they need to go? Why can't the trustworthy guy that brought it to the tire shop just bring it all the way to where the Clint Eastwood's going to bring it to?
Yeah, those kinds of realistic, logical questions are just ignored by this film completely. Like, why is Clint Eastwood not only a mule in the first place, to your point, but also why is he the best? I mean, like, he's like the best of all time, and he's only done like 10 runs or something, or 11 runs at that time, and he's like the greatest of all time. So good that he's getting invited down to hang out and party with the Don. It's like, really? This happened movie. Okay.
It's based on a real article.
A real piece of article that could not have been fabricated in any way, shape, or form.
Hey, it was in the New York Times, man.
Oh man, that's a venerable institution of not yellow journalism at all.
Well, I'll link to that on our show notes page as well.
You want to know? You want to see how things are blown out of proportion? Buffalo Bill, Psycho, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre are all based on real people. They're all based on the same person, Ed Gein, who did almost literally is like none of those people, except for he made clothes out of women's skin. He ate people, and yeah, I mean, it's like those characters. They said, okay, this guy was making a woman like a skin suit out of women's body parts, and then they created Buffalo Bill, and then they created Leatherface and stuff. So I mean, yeah, there was probably a thing about 70-year-old man gets caught muling for Mexican mafia or something like that, and then they're like, oh, let's make this movie that is totally out there.
Yeah, like 90% is just fabricated, and it's not even fabricated in an interesting way. That's the real crime here. It's like we were just gonna make shit up. Well, if you're gonna make shit up, let's actually make it interesting and exciting or something, because it was almost like a documentary, just with no drama, just craptacular.
So what about all the story arcs that never paid off? So like he had like this thing, the whole overarching thing was family. And so you had that guy who was supposed to be his handler, and like the handler doesn't like him this whole time. And then he comes out and he's like, oh, these people don't care about you. And it's really weird that he comes out and tells this guy that these people don't care about him right after he just got done like partying with them and getting laid by these super hot models when he's, basically, a corpse. And they do all this stuff for him. Then he comes out and tells this guy, oh, they don't care nothing about you. And then they kind of get mad and everything. And then all of a sudden, like you don't really think that they're friends until the Don gets killed off. They show Clint Eastwood, the guy in the trunk, and now his handler is like, oh, I told you that you're not, just do what you're told. We're not friends. And it's like, oh, I was thinking the whole time, like, I never thought you guys were friends. You know what I mean? Like, so that the story arc they were trying to do there was basically like whenever he showed care and concern for his handler, all of a sudden they became friends, and they became friends over the pulled pork sandwich, or whenever he basically said that these were Mexicans that he picked up outside of Home Depot. All this stuff is supposed to lead you to believe that all of a sudden the handler and Clint Eastwood are now friends, but you never get that until all of a sudden he's like, we're not friends. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess you guys aren't friends when I never knew you guys were friends to begin with. And there's a lot of that stuff that never got, these loose ends that never got tied up right.
Yeah, and then at the end, where's his handler? What's his handler doing? I don't even remember. Yeah. The handler wasn't even in the scene where he supposedly gets beat up. You don't even get to see him getting beat up.
No, yeah, you didn't see that either.
It's just over. The movie's over. He ends up in jail. Never see the handler again. So that entire storyline just goes nowhere.
Well, that's stupid too. Here's the thing: if you were part of a dangerous mafia, especially a ruthless guy who took over, he killed the Don, and he's going to kill this guy when they find him, which is stupid. Because here's the thing: if that mafia worth their salt, there's no freaking way that he would have been gone for like 8 days without them finding him. Especially whenever those guys in the garage told him, "Oh, we know everything about you." Whenever he goes to take the first load, like that whole stuff doesn't jive right. But here's the other thing: let's just forget all that and say that wasn't let's just throw all that logic out the window, because they did. Whenever he goes to prison, like all of a sudden he lives happily ever after planting flowers in prison. That dude's getting whacked. Like that's the way that is. The ending of that movie should have been him bending over to smell the flower, and the Mexican guy walks up behind him and shanks him, because that's the way that shit would happen.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking for logic and consistency in this movie, and we're trying to shine up this pig, put all the lipstick on it. But it's a daytime made-for-TV special. They got a major movie motion picture release for some reason. How this happened? I mean, just because if it wasn't Clint Eastwood in the movie in the starring role and directing it, this would not have been released as a major motion picture. They'd be like, no way, no one's going to come see this crap. It's too terrible. I'm not putting any money behind this. But like we said, his name means money, so it happened.
It's like if Oxygen was made for men and this was a made-for-TV movie for that Oxygen, male Oxygen channel.
Yeah, but even still toned down from that probably.
Is that what Spike TV was supposed to be way back when?
Oh yeah, Spike TV. I remember that.
Yeah, I don't think I ever watched it. It's supposed to be a guy thing. Anyway. Well, we're probably at that point where we can get into some final summary and review. I think I kind of know which way everyone's leaning, but Robert, why don't you...
hold on, I got one more thing. Did anybody else expect Danny Trejo to jump in here? I was waiting for Danny Trejo the whole time. I was like, we got Michael Pena, we got all these other guys. Where the hell is Danny Trejo?
And his machete.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I didn't even consider that. I thought we got Alex. Was it Alex Garcia? Is that who that was? The Don?
Andy Garcia,
Andy Garcia. That's
Yeah.
right. A very not looking great Andy Garcia.
the man with
But,
the golden gun.
A golden gun, yeah. Yeah, I was hoping Danny Trejo would be in it because Danny Trejo makes almost everything better.
But he knew to stay away from the crap test. I don't know how he got
He's
Bradley
like,
Cooper.
pass.
Yeah, and Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne was like, "This is bullshit. I was in the Matrix.
That was the high point of Fishburne's career.
I was fucking Morpheus, and now I got to read these lines. This is bullshit."
All right, Robert, why don't you lead us off with our summary and review? Score out of 10, a decimal point deep.
Man, this guy, I got to give this thing a number. Man, I don't even know if it gets a number. This is just the worst movie ever. It seemed like it was a passionless project made by a man without passion. And he's just like this weird old doddering guy. He did kind of put his Clint Eastwood stamp on it, but it was a terrible stamp because he's a 90-year-old man at the end of his career. And I think he should have stopped before making this thing. It was a bait and switch, classic bait and switch as he goes out, come and see the last Clint Eastwood movie and it's terrible. You shouldn't have come. It's not worth your time. It wasn't worth my time. I had to watch it in 2 sittings because I watched the first half, bored to tears, had to turn it off. I was about to fall asleep anyway. And then I watched the second half this morning because I'm like, oh shit, I got to finish that thing for the show tonight. So it's like a 2, maybe a 1. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It really is. I've seen more interesting, low budget, slasher movies, things with better ideas. And this thing's got star talent. He's got star power. You got Bradley Cooper. You got Lawrence Fishburne. You got Clint Eastwood. You got Michael Pena, Andy Garcia. You got these big names. And why are they there? Are they all just doing favors? Does Clint Eastwood have a bunch of dirt on him? He must. I don't know. Why else are they there?
He's even got his daughter in there. His daughter plays his daughter.
Oh, well, there you go. She's like, okay, Dad, this one time I'll do you this one favor.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
shit.
in some of the pre-show, Robert, we talked about you're painting your house inside tonight. And
Can you hear that scraping?
Yeah, you'll be watching paint dry. It'll be more entertaining than this movie apparently was for you. All right, let's go over to Rocky for your summary and review and a score, please.
I think that it was a bad movie. It was definitely one of the worst Clint Eastwood written, directed, starred, everything Clint Eastwood movies he's done. I wasn't a big fan of Gran Torino, like a lot of people were, but I thought, even that was better than this. I think if I had to, where it scores points for me, I'll say is my parents are Clint Eastwood fans, and I know that if my pops and my mom watched it, they'd be like, "Oh, that was a good movie." So I mean, if it makes anything that makes my parents happy, scores a little bit with me. But I kind of I try to look at the movies as being like, what would I rate this? What would I rate this if I was trying to go home with it? And this is definitely probably a 3 on my scale.
All right. Well, thank you for bringing the particular scale and metaphors that remind me of my 20s. All right. Well, I'm going to say that I found this movie to be very long. My wife and I were watching it the other night, and it felt like a long time of watching, and we paused it because we're like, all right, well, let's go upstairs and watch the rest of it in bed. And it turned out that there was 40 minutes left. And we're like, how is that even possible? It's only a 2-hour movie. So it's a very slow-paced movie. And I agree that he doesn't direct it in such a way to where it's like very dynamic and that it's really got a lot of emotion in it. And it's not... some of it is a little bit subtle. Like, so you really have to be paying attention to something that's kind of boring to have the story make sense. And you're right, Rocky, it is a bit fantastical in some of the events that are depicted. But overall, I thought that basically, choosing between the career and his family, and he finds that was a mistake in his life and even tries to tell that to the Bradley Cooper character in the cafe, like, hey, I've learned something, you really need to be there for family. That's the most important thing. I think that it does try to bring that redemption arc to it. And he does try to utilize this being a mule and earning the money as a result of it to do good things for other people, to try and, I don't know, like make up for the past mistakes. And so I give that a little bit of a pass. It's not a great movie. I think that Clint Eastwood does have some great movies. Unforgiven is one of my favorite movies, and I think that's one worthy of doing at some point in the future. And also the spaghetti westerns with Sergio Leone, those are really good. And even the Dirty Harry stuff, I mean, is kind of cheesy as a lot of those are. It's still like entertainment. So I'd be willing to do another Clint Eastwood movie in the future. It's just kind of unfortunate that he's declined so much in his powers that this is what has done for his last movie. But at his age, I don't know how much more he could have done. Really, I mean, he's probably a little bit senile at this point. But I'm going to go with a 5 on this. I don't think it's like the worst movie ever. But it was, the trailer really built it up, and it made me think that there was more to it than what it really was. So
I took a dump this morning that had more of a plot than this movie.
All right. Well,
probably would have been funner to watch.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Well, this is about as lewd as we've gotten on this show. So Robert, next week we're gonna have Olaf, our friend who was on for what was that King movie? The Scottish King movie.
Oh yeah, the Netflix one with Captain Kirk.
Yeah, that guy, Chris Pine. I forget the exact name of that movie, but it's in our back catalog, and we'll post that on the show notes. But he's going to be back. He was going to do the Truman Show with us a few months ago, but at the last minute he was unable to. So we had Mike C., one of our favorite guests, do a quick fill-in. But this next movie is one of Olaf's favorite movies. He saw it recently, and he was like, "Oh my God, this is so good! You guys have got to do this." So it's called Spirited Away. It's like an anime film from something like 20 years ago. He just saw it recently and was blown away by it. He has tons of stuff he wants to talk about. So that's what we're going to be doing next week when we come back with Olaf.
As I recall, Spirited Away won an Academy Award back in the day.
Yeah, it was a big movie. I dated a girl right after I graduated from high school who was super into anime, and that was one of about 3 or 4 that she had that were stomachable animes. It's not too bad. It's anime, so there's a lot of very fantasy stuff in there with creatures and everything, but it's not as bad as most anime and hentai.
I will say it's not my favorite Studio Ghibli film. It's probably not even in my top 5, but it's a well done, capable film. I'll say that. It's not the most interesting to me. I mean, the plot is basically a girl goes to this weird place and her family gets turned into pigs. And so she has to work for a witch to get them to not, get turned back into humans again or whatever. But at the end, was it all a dream and stuff? I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it's just some pretty interesting stuff. I'm curious how Dan is going to like it or not. We'll see. Right. And I want to rewatch it with my libertarian eyeballs on and see what I see, because back when I watched it, back in the day, I was not so we'll see.
He could have picked Kiki's Delivery Service.
Or Princess Mononoke, or Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah. Oh, The Secret Life what is that? The Secrets of Nim would be cool.
Oh yeah,
it's an old one.
Little mice.
Yeah, I remember seeing that one. I want to say around kindergarten age, something like that, and it being scary at the time. But
yeah, it was.
But anyway, yeah, it will be an interesting conversation. I don't know much about it other than what Robert just told me, and it sounds fantastical. So I'm looking forward to watching that, and we will return next week. Now, Robert, before we go, why don't you tell people how they can support the show? What kinds of things can they do for us?
Oh, they can do all kinds of stuff. They can just come up to me on the street and give me a high five. They could give me 5. I'll take dollar bills. I'm not proud. They could, talk to people about the show. They could leave us a review on the iTunes. They could subscribe on their Stitcher or iTunes apps. They could support us on the Patreons. They could subscribe to us on YouTubes. They could leave a review or a comment in the YouTubes. They could do all of those things and any other ways that you even think of. They could just tell their friends about this cool podcast that they listen to about these weirdo guys talking about movies from a libertarian perspective. I don't know. Did I leave any out? There's stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a good list for now. We can share some more on the next episode. Rocky, thank you for being our guest on The Last Nighters, and we will have a link to your website and some of the other things you mentioned earlier on the show notes page at lastnighters.com/90. This can also be found on the Launchpad Media, where they're always launching new ideas in your direction. And final word to Rocky, and then we'll say goodnight here.
Well, thank you guys for having me. Much appreciated. Like I said before, I'm always interested in coming on and talking about libertarian ideas, and furthermore, always interested in coming on and being able to talk about movies and kind of how the world the world in which we live relates to libertarianism. And it's not necessarily that these ideas are so abstract that they're irrelevant. So I always love these types of shows.
It was a pleasure having you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we'll say goodnight from last night, everyone.
In the early days of the internet, radical libertarians were scattered, lonely, and faceless. Without direction, they resigned to scour the web, sifting through content providers in a wasteland plagued by YouTube demonetization, Facebook jail, and covert internet censorship. But then, in 2017, the Libertarian Union was formed. Finally, the average Joe libertarian could find a thriving community of independent podcasters and content providers, all in one convenient location. At Libertarian Union, we'll always have the latest news, interviews, discussions, and even movie reviews. With hundreds of episodes and more added all the time, you'll always find something fresh at libertarianunion.com.